Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving deep into the mind of Citadel founder Ken Griffin. We're going to break down his diagnosis of the American economy, unpack the hidden risks he sees, and explore the cures he's proposing.
All right, let's just jump right in with this really powerful quote from Griffin himself. He says the U.S. economy is on a sugar high. It's such a great metaphor, right? It immediately gets you thinking. It suggests that while things might feel good on the surface, that feeling could be totally artificial and maybe not so sustainable.
So what does he actually mean by that? Well, here's the breakdown. You've got near full employment, which sounds fantastic, but it's being propped up by the kind of massive government spending and easy money policies that you'd normally only see during a really bad recession. It's that strange combination, a strong economy getting emergency-level stimulus, that has Griffin so concerned. Okay, so that brings us to the first big problem Griffin points to, the hidden threats to this so-called sugar-high economy. He sees these cracks starting to form in the very foundation of America's financial power, beginning with a serious challenge to the US dollar. And this really drives the point home. Griffin highlights a massive 10% drop in the dollar's value in just 6 months, a fall he says is the biggest we've seen in 50 years. Now, to him, that's not just some random market swing. It's a huge warning sign that global confidence might be starting to wear thin. And this shows you a really important shift in behavior that Griffin is watching closely. For decades, whenever there was a crisis anywhere in the world, everybody ran straight to the safety of the US dollar. It was the ultimate safe harbor. But Griffin's noticing that's starting to change. Now we're seeing gold hit all-time highs as central banks and big investors look for a different place to park their money. And this quote right here just perfectly sums up his biggest fear. It's not simply that the price of gold is going up, it's why it's going up. He believes gold is starting to take over the dollar's job as the world's ultimate safe asset. And for Griffin, that erosion of the dollar's special status is one of the most dangerous trends playing out right now. So what's driving all this? What's causing this uncertainty and making people hedge against the US dollar? Well, Griffin points his finger at one place and one place only, Washington, D.C., and what he sees as a total breakdown in how the country manages its money. Now, he is incredibly clear that this is not a partisan thing. In his view, both Republicans and Democrats are guilty of what he calls profligate spending. It's a systemic issue, not a political one, and it's creating this huge, long-term risk for the country's financial health. And this number just puts it all into perspective. The U.S. is running a budget deficit that's 6 to 7% of its entire economy. To Griffin, spending that much when the economy is already doing well is, in his words, completely irresponsible. It's like flooring the gas pedal when you're already going 90 down the freeway. It just doesn't make any sense. And check out this contrast. It gives you some really important historical context. Griffin notes that at a similar point in the economic cycle back in the 90s, the government wasn't just spending less, it was actually running a surplus. It was taking in more money than it spent. That really shows you just how dramatically things have changed. So, if the diagnosis is a sugar high caused by reckless spending, what's the cure? What's Ken Griffin's prescription? Well, it has nothing to do with more government programs. It's about something much more, fundamentally American. And this is it. This is his core solution. Unleash the animal spirits. He believes the only way to get out of this mess is through explosive growth. And you get that by creating an environment where American ambition, innovation, and that raw entrepreneurial drive can just run wild. It's all about getting the government out of the way and letting people build things. But his view on how to get there is actually pretty nuanced. When he looks at the Trump administration's record, for example, he gives a thumbs up to the focus on deregulation and the pro-business attitude. But at the same time, he's a huge critic of the tariff policies, and he says the immigration policy is something he just scratches his head over.
And his ideas on immigration are really specific. On one hand, yes, he supports closing the borders to illegal immigration. But on the other hand, he says America is in a global war for talent and needs to win it. So what does that mean? It means stapling a green card to the diploma of every foreign STEM graduate and finding a real path forward for immigrants who are already here working and paying taxes.
Okay, for our last section, let's look to the future. We're going to see what Griffin thinks about two of the biggest topics in finance and tech right now: artificial intelligence and, of course, crypto. So, when it comes to AI, you might think Griffin would be all about the hype, but he's actually much more of a realist.
He compares it to huge revolutions of the past, like the personal computer or the internet. Everybody knew those were game changers, but their true economic impact took decades to fully play out, not just a few years. He thinks AI is probably going to follow that same longer timeline.
But when the conversation turns to asset tokenization, which is a big idea in the crypto space, his entire tone just flips. He gives this absolutely scathing take, calling it a huge opportunity for shysters and basically a new way for the average person to get absolutely hosed. I mean, that is about as blunt as it gets from a major Wall Street figure. And to make sure his point is crystal clear, he compares this whole push for tokenization to the return of boiler rooms. These were those old-school scams where people in a back room would cold call you and use high-pressure sales tactics to sell you worthless investments. In Griffin's view, tokenization is just a modern, high-tech version of that same old scam.
And that brings us to the end. Ken Griffin paints this picture of a nation that's running on a risky, stimulus-fueled high, all while its financial foundations are facing these serious long-term threats. So we'll leave you with this to think about. Is his diagnosis right? And is his prescription, unleashing those animal spirits, the right medicine for the U.S. economy?